The Galactic Military Academy's central courtyard hummed with the usual cacophony of 100 different species preparing for combat training. Daniel stood near the reinforced sparring rings, his standard-issue training armor feeling uncomfortably tight around his human frame. At 6 feet tall, he was considered diminutive by Academy standards. Most of his classmates towered over him by at least 2 feet. Elsa had arrived at the Academy 3 weeks ago, the second human to ever be admitted. She was quiet, methodical, and possessed an unnerving calm that Daniel recognized immediately. She reminded him of the Special Forces soldiers from Earth, the ones who never needed to raise their voices because their competence spoke volumes. Krathax, a Vorinian battle champion standing nearly 9 feet tall with 4 arms and chitinous armor plating, had made Elsa his target from day one. Vorin culture valued dominance displays, and in Krathax's calculation, the small human female represented an easy way to establish his superiority. "The little pink skin looks lost," Krathax announced to his cohort, his translator rendering his clicks and hisses into standard galactic. "Perhaps she should return to her primitive world before real training begins." Elsa continued checking her equipment, not acknowledging the comment. Daniel had learned that humans from military backgrounds often employed selective hearing as a tactical choice. For 2 weeks, Krathax had escalated, shoulder checks in corridors, accidentally damaged equipment, loud speculation about human weakness and cowardice, standard bullying across any species, really. The instructors had noticed but operated under the Academy's philosophy: warriors must learn to handle interpersonal conflicts independently. On this particular morning, Krathax made his critical error. "I challenge the human female to open combat," he declared formally, invoking Academy regulations that made the challenge legally binding. "Let us demonstrate the difference between prey species and predators." The courtyard fell silent. Formal challenges were serious affairs. They continued until one participant yielded or became incapacitated. Instructor Velkoth, a massive reptilian chronar with centuries of combat experience, oversaw all formal challenges. He rumbled his acknowledgement. "Does the challenged accept?" Elsa looked up from her equipment check, her brown eyes utterly flat. "I accept." Daniel felt his stomach drop. He tried to warn her about Vorinian combat styles. Their 4 arms allowed simultaneous grappling and striking. Their natural armor could deflect most blunt trauma, and their strength was approximately 3 times that of humans in standard gravity. The 2 combatants entered the ring. Krathax performed an elaborate display of dominance, roaring, displaying his full arm span, mandibles clicking in aggressive patterns. Standard pre-combat intimidation. Elsa simply stood in a neutral stance, weight balanced, hands loose at her sides, waiting. The display finished, Krathax charged. What happened next would later be analyzed in tactical courses throughout the Academy. Elsa didn't retreat or brace for impact. She moved laterally with inhuman speed, the product of Earth's higher gravity and evolutionary pressure that created persistence predators. Krathax's massive form rushed past as she pivoted, and her heel struck the back of his primary knee joint with surgical precision. The Vorinian stumbled but recovered, spinning with remarkable agility for his size. All 4 arms reached for Elsa in a pattern designed to overwhelm opponents with multiple simultaneous attacks. She wasn't there. Elsa had dropped below his arm sweep, and her fist, small compared to Vorinian appendages, drove into Krathax's secondary elbow joint with a sharp crack. The limb went limp. Vorinanes had evolved on a lower gravity world. Their joints, despite appearing robust, were vulnerable to perpendicular force. "Yield," Elsa said quietly. Krathax roared and swung with his remaining 3 arms. Elsa slipped inside his guard, a maneuver most species considered suicidal against a Vorinian. Her elbow drove upward into his mandible joint, Then her other hand struck his sensory cluster. The Vorinian's vision went white with pain. Instructor Velkoth began moving toward the ring, finally recognizing what Daniel had suspected from the beginning. Elsa wasn't a standard recruit. The efficiency, the targeting of specific anatomical vulnerabilities, the absolute emotional control, this was someone trained to kill. But he was too late. Elsa had positioned herself behind Krathax, where his remaining functional arms couldn't reach effectively. Her arm wrapped around his neck in a blood choke, positioned precisely to compress his primary circulatory vessels without crushing his windpipe, a technique that demonstrated concerning knowledge of Vorinian anatomy. "Yield," she repeated, voice still calm. Krathax, panicking now, thrashed violently. Elsa's legs wrapped around his torso, her entire body becoming an inescapable constraint. In Earth's martial arts, it was called taking the back. Here, against a species unaccustomed to grappling from smaller opponents, it was devastating. Instructor Velkoth reached the ring as Krathax's struggles weakened, his oxygen-starved brain beginning to shut down. "Combatant Elsa, release," Velkoth commanded. Elsa released immediately, stepping back as Krathax collapsed to the mat, gasping and disoriented. Medical drones swarmed into the ring. Velkoth turned to Elsa, his expression unreadable. "You will accompany me to the commandant's office immediately." As they left the courtyard, Daniel heard the whispers beginning. The other students had witnessed something that challenged their fundamental assumptions. The human hadn't won through luck or desperation. She had systematically dismantled an opponent 3 times her mass using precise anatomical knowledge and superior technique. Later, Daniel learned the truth from the commandant's leaked report. Elsa had been an intelligence operative for Earth's unified military command, specializing in xenobiology and asymmetric warfare. She'd been admitted to the Academy as part of a controversial program to field-test human combat doctrine against galactic standards. The Academy had stopped the fight too late, not because Elsa was in danger, but because they'd allowed their students to learn a terrifying lesson. Humans weren't physically impressive by galactic standards, but they'd evolved as endurance predators on a high-gravity Deathworld. They studied, adapted, and exploited weaknesses with creativity born from being physically inferior to most predators they'd encountered. Krathax recovered physically, but he never challenged anyone again, and the Academy's doctrine on prey species underwent significant revision. Because humanity, the instructors realized, had been prey once. Then they'd invented weapons, tactics, and systematic violence that made them the most successful predators their planet had ever produced. And now they were among the stars.